start off talking about Matthew's team. Not as much unity perhaps as there was a couple of weeks ago, but Carson Wentz, Matthew, he is going to start. Taylor Heinicke has been benched. As a Commanders man, how do you feel about this?
Not great. I mean, it is what it is. What could possibly go wrong? Here's what I will tell you. Carson Wentz is physically more gifted than Taylor Heinicke. It's not even particularly close. But the team just doesn't seem to like Carson Wentz. They do rally around Taylor Heinicke, and I honestly don't think it's fair that Taylor Heinicke loses his job. Taylor Heinicke shouldn't have last week. The fact of the matter is he played well, as we talked about. The guy had a QBR of over 83. The offensive line let him down, and he went on the road to San Francisco. He moved the ball. Now, so did Wentz, 12 of 16, 123 yards and a touchdown for Wentz when he came in for Heinicke last week. Honestly, what's going to be the difference here as Antonio Gibson, I'm just getting an alert here that Antonio Gibson is not at the start of practice today for the Commanders. What's really going to make the difference here is, can they play good defense and can they run the ball? That's been the success of them the entire time, and certainly going to be the fact the importance of against Cleveland, who over the last month has been a top 3 run defense, but 26th against the run. The ability of them to run Brian Robinson and hopefully Antonio Gibson, if he's out there. If he's not, it'll probably be some Jonathan Williams. But ultimately, their success running the ball is what's going to make the biggest difference here. So whether it's Heinicke or Wentz, both guys can hand off just fine. So I kind of I want to see Heinicke sort of finish it out, but I sort of get it with Wentz, and maybe because as he's watched me literally talk myself into it on camera, maybe because they sort of rallied behind Heinicke and they sort of realized, oh, hey, we've got a good team. Hey, we've got a shot at the postseason. Maybe now when Wentz comes in, they'll respond better than they did initially when they went whatever it was with him, 1-6, 1-5.
Yeah, I like Cleveland +2. I think that this is going to be. I don't think this is going to work out. Lawrence, what are the fantasy repercussions?
Well, as far as the receivers go, right, I don't know that it would be much different, especially we're talking about a guy like Jahan Dotson right here who's come back like gangbusters. He's been productive with Taylor Heinicke. He's been productive with Carson Wentz. So it's really all about how that team felt about whichever quarterback they wanted to play in the game. So I will say this, Terry McLaurin, I would say he gets a slight bump, because remember early in the season he got off to a slow start when Carson Wentz was playing. Jahan Dotson was a touchdown machine in the beginning, and he's a touchdown machine now. So if anything, I would say a slight bump for McLaurin, and I would just narrow the gap between him and Jahan Dotson.
Well, but hey, Lawrence, by slight bump, I assume you mean a slight bump down. I mean, Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, that's what I meant, right.
Yeah, right. Because Terry McLaurin with Carson Wentz just wasn't getting the love in the games that he played with Carson Wentz this year. He averaged over just basically 11.1 fantasy points per game with Taylor Heinicke under center, 15.6. Wentz just wasn't looking McLaurin's way the way that Heinicke sort of locked in on Terry McLaurin. So I think this is a downgrade for McLaurin. Carson Wentz came into the San Francisco game and threw 16 pass attempts. One of those 16 went to number 17, Terry McLaurin. So I think this is a downgrade for him. I think he's now more of a wide receiver 3 against a tough Browns pass defense. And I do think this is an upgrade for Jahan J. Dotson, who, obviously, to your point, had the nice game last week as well. With Carson Wentz this year, averaging 13.1 fantasy points per game, averaging 10.3 with Heinicke. So more or less the same, slightly better with Wentz. He's really coming to his own. Dotson has as well. And so I think, we talked about him yesterday in the waiver wire show. I think both guys, to Lawrence's point, both guys are sort of wide receiver 3s, which is a downgrade from what McLaurin is and an upgrade for where Dotson is. I do think a more evenly distributed ball in the passing attack is what will happen under Carson Wentz.
Yeah, listen, Matthew, I'm just trying to expand our international audience with my Jahan Dotson pronunciation. I'm thinking big picture. You think about the Americans. Look, I think I think ultimately that both of these guys are going to be fantasy viable against that Cleveland defense, which is not very good. I think it's going to be a Brian Robinson game, particularly if Antonio Gibson is limited or not able to go. We'll have to monitor that situation. But let's go to another quarterback change. This one forced. News has come out of Miami. Mike McDaniel has confirmed that Tua Tagovailoa has a concussion. He's not likely to play against the New England Patriots. Teddy Bridgewater is in line to start. Look, firstly, obviously our thoughts go to Tua Tagovailoa. Personally, I'm glad that he's not playing and that this has been sorted out and we don't have to worry about a further injury. From the football side of things, Lawrence, with Teddy Bridgewater in line to start, does this change your opinion on any of the Dolphins?
No, and this is why. Because Teddy Bridgewater did have a week where he was quarterback 7. It was against the Vikings in week 6 against the Vikings. He threw for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So, and they almost won that game had not Jalen Waddle fumbled on the last drive. So, and he also, when Tua got hurt with the bad concussion, he came in, he filled in admirably versus the Bengals. So, and in fact, I'll even go even further to say that they still might have the best quarterback in this game with Teddy Bridgewater over Mac Jones. So I expect them to still go win the game. But from a fantasy perspective, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they were still able to do their numbers. They was at least able to get their targets, and they did do numbers. That Skylar Thompson was the quarterback for the Dolphins that you didn't want in the game for the Dolphins.
Yep. Matthew, does this change your opinion on any Dolphin? Look, I think you're starting Tyreek, you're starting Jalen Waddle. Does it do anything around the backfield situation?
No, I don't think so. I think they run their offense. I mean, look, I've said this before about a lot of quarterbacks, but Teddy Bridgewater is a competent NFL quarterback. And I say that not as an insult. Like, he's fine. He'll be able to run the offense. Like, the last time he filled in, it was unfortunate right again. Like, he had the quick injury as well. And so, but against New England, whose secondary is beat up, I mean, the Patriots 26th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Like, I actually think Bridgewater will be fine here. And, yeah, I have no concerns at all about Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or any piece of the Dolphins offense that you would normally start. And I think Bridgewater is actually a viable QB2 streamer this week if you're truly desperate. Like, again, he's in that Carson Wentz, in that Brock Purdy kind of range there, the Daniel Jones range, if you will, slightly lower than Daniel Jones, but like, I prefer Mike White to him. But again, if those guys are gone and you're truly desperate, like, I don't, like 225 and 2 touchdowns with the pick sounds about right for Teddy Bridgewater this Sunday.
Yep, yeah. I'm with you there. And I think there's this perception that Teddy Bridgewater is like check down Teddy, that it's just dump offs. Like, guy threw it like 60 yards in the air to Tyreek Hill in that primetime game against the Bengals. Like, he can throw it deep. And then also, if he is checked down, Teddy, that's fine. You check it down on short routes to Tyreek or Jalen Waddle, and they can take it to the house. I also think the Patriots' defense is a little bit overrated, just with all their rankings, because they had 3 games against Sam Ehlinger and Zach Wilson combined. So I do think that you can throw on this team. Let's go to Tennessee, where there is a lot of uncertainty around who exactly they're going to be playing on Thursday night. And let's hear from Derrick Henry talking about his status for the game.
I think I talked on Sunday. Just have emphasis on it. Fight for extra yards. You got to take care of the ball, and that's what I'm trying to do this week.
Said you're going to be ready. Would you, if given the choice, if coach asks you, do you want to go or you want to play in this game?
Whatever I got to do, and whatever coach needs me to do, I'll be ready to do it.
Important for you guys to get a win, regardless of who's playing or not, to get this off your back, to go into Jacksonville feeling.
Well, I don't think we were playing to lose. I think we go out there and try to get a win, put our best foot for it, and do what we can to get a win.
All right, that was Derrick Henry. I don't think there's much clarity coming out of that, but he certainly wasn't adamant that he's going to play or that he wants to play. So my guess would be that he's not going to play. But Matthew, what are you doing around this situation fantasy-wise?
I think we're waiting until Thursday. That's the one nice thing about the Thursday game here, is that we'll have early clarity onto whether or not Derrick Henry is active. That's encouraging. The fact that he practiced on Tuesday, the fact that he's saying that to the press, like, he doesn't strike me as a guy that wouldn't want to be. It doesn't make sense for him to play. Like, there's literally no logical reason for him to play, unless there are some, contract incentives that I'm not aware of. But it feels like, listen, especially because we've seen this before from Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. Mike Vrabel, not the team he played for, the team he coaches. Mike Vrabel and the Titans. We've seen this from them before. A couple years ago, when similar situation, they had a second to last week game of the season that did not matter. The last game of the season is the one that mattered, and so they sat Derrick Henry. And then in the last game of the season, he went off, and it was awesome. And so, feels like why would you play him on a short week in a game that doesn't matter when you desperately need to beat the Jaguars in week 18? So yeah, I guess how I'm approaching it is hopefully you picked up Hassan Haskins. I think the bigger question, Jay, is what do you do if he's active? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and hopefully we get some better reporting. And again, it feels like it's trending towards maybe he will be, and maybe they will play some games here. Here's what I would do. I would be aware that this is really risk reward territory that we're in. And I think it sort of depends on what other options you have. Derrick Henry was a first-round pick, but if you had, trying to think of a good example, like if you had Derrick Henry, and you'd also picked up, like, let's say you easily could have Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley based on the way drafts went. Fine. So okay, you've got Barkley, and then you've also got, like, I don't know, McKinnon or Pacheco, Bam Knight, one of these guys. Like, I'm probably rolling with I'd probably roll with Barkley and like one of the Kansas City guys this week, rather than risk it with Henry.
I'm actually in that exact situation you just mentioned, Matthew, with Derrick Henry and Saquon, and I have Miles Sanders, so I'm definitely like, if he doesn't play, it's like, okay, well, at least I don't have to worry about starting him. So if any fantasy managers out there are in a similar situation and you have that running back, like you said, a Chiefs running back, a Miles Sanders, maybe him not playing will be a good thing in this particular situation, so you don't got to sweat that out. Let whoever picked up Hassan Haskins go ahead and start him against Dallas, and you sit back and wait till Sunday to start Miles Sanders or somebody.
Right, but the bigger question to me, Lord, listen, if he's out on Thursday night, then it's easy, obviously, then you pivot to someone else. The question is, what happens if is he active? Are you starting him? Because if he's active, there's a chance that he's Derrick Henry, and you gotta
roll with it.
Usual compliment. But there's also a chance that he's active and he's just, he gets the first series just to sort of keep him active or whatever, and then he sits for the rest of the game. Like, there's a chance that he's active and a decoy, if that makes any sense, right? That he doesn't do anything. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am in a closet.
That scenario you just described right there, Matthew, it was literally burning my heart as you said it, because it's so real. It's a realistic situation that could definitely happen, but that's where we're at with this. So, hey, if he doesn't play, maybe they take some time and let Malik Willis throw the ball.
I'm not letting you up the hook, Lawrence. I'm not letting you up the hook.
Don't let me off.
You have him on your team. If Derrick Henry is active on Thursday night, are you playing him? You have a team with Saquon Barkley.
Oh, you better believe it.
Are you playing Derrick Henry on Thursday night if he's active?
100%. I won't even look back, because why are we here? This is the championship. They're gonna play him. I have to do it unless we get some type of information saying like he'll be on a snap count or anything like that. If they just say he's playing, I gotta play him.
All right. Well, I think Lawrence might be going
my
down
fear is that they're going to say we're playing him, but then it turns out he's only playing, 5 snaps.
And I had to be ready for that. Saquon will have to go out and get me 35 then.
I think potentially the more relevant news around this game is on Tony Pollard and not on Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get much out of Derrick Henry either way, to be honest. But I think with Tony Pollard, he's got this thigh injury. He did not practice yesterday. And the thing with Dallas is that, they still have stuff to play for. They're still alive in the NFC East after beating Philadelphia, but it's a very low percentage chance that they're actually going to win the NFC East because they need Philadelphia to lose to both New Orleans and then a Giants team in Week 18 that probably has nothing to play for. So I'm not sure that we're going to see Tony Pollard. And then the question becomes, Lawrence, like Ezekiel Elliott, is he just a locked-in RB1?
Ooh, our RB1 is tough because of the matchup, but definitely a solid RB2 for me. Like, you would start him with no question and not even be worrying about it. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 8 straight games. Like, that's not something you just turn your head against, The rushing yards aren't always there, but in those 8 games, the 15 carries per game, that's there. So that can only go up if Tony Pollard misses the game. Maybe he'll see a little more in the receiving work, but even though the Tennessee Titans are a tough run defense, you could count on the Dallas Cowboys getting near the goal line versus them and Zeke finishing that drive off.
Yep. I think the other thing, Matthew, too, is that there's a chance, yes, this Tennessee run defense is incredible, best in the league, but I'm not sure Jeffrey Simmons is going to be playing a ton of snaps in a game that's meaningless for them. So perhaps the run defense isn't as intimidating. And look, if Pollard's out, then everyone is starting Zeke. But even if Pollard is active carrying this injury in a game that doesn't mean a ton for Dallas, are you still comfortable starting Tony Pollard?
Yeah, I'm probably not. I mean, again, we'll sort of see how it plays out today and sort of the reporting. But it is, if they feel good enough to put Tony Pollard out there, then I'm probably starting him, but I'm not feeling great about it. Jerry Jones did say, hey, quote, we don't have him down as something that would keep him out. We're counting on him playing. He's number 17 in my ranks this week, so partially because he may not be 100%. Also, to your point, the Titans give up the 6th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. They've been a really good run defense this year, even if they'll be at less than 100% on their side of the ball. So, yeah, I mean, I think if Tony Pollard's active, I'm playing him. To your point, they have something to play for, and I don't think they would make him active, especially because they have Ezekiel Elliott, because they have other running backs that they like there. If Pollard's active, I'm starting him, but I would say that I have Zeke at 23, Pollard at 17. If Pollard were out, Zeke would, to Lawrence's point, Zeke would be like a mid-tier running back too. Everyone's playing him, but he does need that touchdown to pay off. I mean, again, he's averaging under 4 yards per carry the last 2 games. Like he's really kind of a touchdown-dependent RB2. He's kind of the textbook definition of it. But luckily, he's been doing that. Like I think he's scored now in I want to say 6 straight games, something like that. I mean, it's
8,
something
actually
ridiculous. So he's a touchdown-dependent RB2, even if Pollard is out. But I think he's got a pretty good shot at getting a touchdown. And I would start Zeke in all the leagues I have him in. I actually have him in 2 finals myself. So,
okay, let's go to Las Vegas, where just weirdness circling everywhere in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, where we will be next week, Jay Croucher.
Where we will be next week. Sorry,
Yeah.
Lawrence, you're not invited.
Yeah, they ain't hit me up for that. Come on now,
sorry,
what's
Bob.
happening,
Yeah,
NBC?
Yeah, NBC exec said there's only one person who can come who wears, faded blue jeans and a black T-shirt. So you're out, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
weirdness
We'll
happening.
give you more details on exactly where we'll be, but we will be live in Vegas all next week. So if you happen to be in Sin City next week, come on by and say hi to us as we broadcast live out of Las Vegas. More details on that coming soon.
Indeed. More to come on that, and also potentially more to come on the Raiders quarterback situation, which, look, this has been a disaster season for Vegas all around. And here is Josh McDaniels talking about Derek Carr's struggles.
I mean, look, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? And for us to be able to win at this time of the year and be productive offensively, you have to throw the ball, better than what we've thrown it at times here in the last month and a half. We've been able to win some in spite of that, overall, but clearly that's not the goal. The goal would be to be more productive than what we've been.
Could be a possibility that maybe you turned it.
I think there's a possibility that we would do the right thing regardless of the position. You know what I mean? Just in terms of the team. You know what I mean?
I think there's a possibility that we would do the right thing, which is one of the worst sentences that I've really ever heard. Look, Matthew, I don't think there's too much to read into this for this season. Yeah, for long term, that's a little strange, but they're not going to bench Derek Carr for Jared Stidham this week, surely. But given especially what happened with, recruiting Davante Adams, who's Derek Carr's best friend, and all the weirdness that's going on in Vegas, I mean, I don't think there are really any repercussions right now, fantasy-wise.
I agree with you. You're still starting Davante Adams. You're still starting Josh Jacobs. You're still starting Darren Waller, regardless of who the quarterback is. I agree with you. I think there's a very, very, very slim possibility that their quarterback is anyone other than Derek Carr this week against San Francisco. Again, we know McDaniels likes Stidham. He was a backup in New England when McDaniels was there as well. But, think about that. If you actually like Jared Stidham and you want this kid to have a chance, why are you going to force him out there against San Francisco? The Niners are one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're currently one of the hottest defenses in the NFL. That defensive line is playing great. Stidham's going to be running for his life in this one, and I just don't think you do that to the kid. As you see it on your screen, Derek Carr has just really struggled since week 13 in terms of, he's got basically 6 touchdown passes in 4 games, along with 7 interceptions. He's got a 6 to 7 touchdown interception ratio over the last 4 weeks. Here's some quarterbacks that are averaging more fantasy points per game since Derek Carr in week 13. Ready for this list?
Hit me.
Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold,
man,
Davis Mills.
Oh no,
that one hurt.
Davis Mills, who isn't even getting full-time snaps. He's splitting with Jeff Driscoll. Davis Mills is averaging more than Derek Carr, who, it's interesting when you think about how bad so much attention has been made on Russell Wilson and his contract. Derek Carr ain't cheap.
No, he's not.
They paid Derek Carr a lot of money, not Russell Wilson money, but
right.
Over $100 million, Derek Carr. Oofa.
He's been worse than Daniel Jones this season, fantasy, real life. It's not even close. I think, Lawrence, that I actually think Carr is going to have a sneakily good game this week because they're back. They're out of the elements. He's got Renfro and Waller who are looking healthier. And he's also going against the San Francisco defense that, yes, is excellent across the board. But also the pass defense wasn't great against the Commanders outside of Nick Bosa wreaking havoc. The Commanders were converting 3rd and longs for fun in that game and were able to move the ball a little bit more than I expected. But what are you expecting from Carr?
Well, it depends. You said a decent game. Well, and really, it's really hasn't just been this past 4 weeks. He hasn't put together a solid stretch of football this whole year. Yet we've been still able to start Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs with no worries. There's been no good stretch for Carr this whole season. So, when you say he gonna have a decent game. For him, probably so. It just depends on what we're talking about here. What are you thinking numbers-wise?
I'm thinking 240 yards and a touchdown. And
he'll get that.
That's better than what he's been doing.
Sweat it out for the no interception. But, yeah, that is better than what he's been doing. So if he could get that, then, yeah, that'll be okay.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to break.
Jay, this is a much bigger NFL story than fantasy story. If you're in your fantasy finals, you're there because you have a quarterback better than Derek Carr, and you're not turning to him this week. And I think that even if Jared Stidham somehow gets the start, and I don't believe that to be the case, the fact is that even though they've had a couple poor games in Jacobs and Davante Adams, I think you're still starting those two guys. And obviously, given the tight end position, we've seen some decent production from Darren Waller since he's come back. I think you're starting him as well. So, it's a non-fantasy story in the sense there's no actual item, but I think it's an interesting one for the NFL and for the offseason, no question.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.